Jerusalem Talmud, Tractate Challah, Chapter 3, Mishnah 5. Mishnah. If somebody makes dough from wheat and rice, if it has the taste of flour, it is subject to Challah, and a person may satisfy his Passover obligation with it. If it does not have the taste of flour, it is not subject to Challah, and a person may not satisfy his Passover obligation with it. If somebody takes sourdough from a dough from which no challah was taken and adds to it from which challah was taken, if he can provide for it from another place, he should take in proportion. Otherwise, he should take challah for everything. Similarly, if harvested olives were mixed with plucked olives, or harvested grapes with gleanings, if he can provide for it from another place, he should take in proportion. Otherwise, he should take heave, I think that's truma, pretty sure. Yeah. Should take heave of the tithe. Yeah, heave is truma and tithe is the maser. Okay. He should take the heave and heave of the tithe that's trumas maser, for everything. But the remainder of the tithe and second tithe in proportion. If somebody takes sourdough from grain dough and adds to it a rice dough, if it imparts the taste of grain, it is subject to Challah. Otherwise, it is exempt from Challah. Then why did they say tevel is forbidden in the most minute amount? In its own kind, not in its own kind, if it can be tasted. Halacha. The Mishnah follows this Mishnah follows Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, since Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says it is never obligated unless it contains the measure of grain. Rabbi Jacob Bar Idi, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, practice follows Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbi Hila said, both following the rabbis here or the rabbis there, they say not unless the greater part be grain and the taste of that grain. Rav Huna said, the taste of grain, even if the greater part is not grain. A Brisa disagrees with Rav Huna. If he mixed other kinds in it, not unless the greater part be grain and the taste of grain. He explains it for other kinds. A Mishnah disagrees with Rabbi Hila. If somebody takes sourdough from grain dough and adds to a rice dough, if it imparts the taste of grain, it is subject to Challah. Otherwise, it is exempt. But it was stated after that, tevel is forbidden in the most minute amount of its own kind, not in its own kind if it can be tasted. Rabbi Yossi was supporting Rabbi Zera. He heard the voice of Rabbi Hila, who was sitting and stating, Rabbi Chia in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the taste of grain, even if the greater part is not grain. Rabbi Asi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the greater part grain, and the taste of that grain. He said, he got it wrong. We had a note that Rabbi Asi teaches like Rav Huna. Rabbi Abun Bar Chia asked before Rabbi Zera, if a cereal offering was mixed with profane flour, may the Kohen take a fistful and permit the remainder to be eaten? Do I read for this, Leviticus 2:3, the remainder of the offering is for Aaron and his sons? He said to him, if tevel was mixed with profane, do I read Numbers 18:28, you shall give from it the Eternal's heave to Aaron the Kohen? He answered him, did I say to you that he cannot take from itself for itself, and not from it for another place? If it is clear to you that he cannot take from it for another place, then even from itself, for itself, he should not be able to take. The Mishnah said that he can take from itself, for itself, as we have stated. Otherwise, he should take Challah for everything. They said Rabbi Zera's is no answer to Rabbi Abun bar Achia's question. What is the difference between him who takes from itself for itself and him who takes from it for another place? When he takes from itself for itself, since this tevel is not qualified to become he for anything similar, the profane admixture makes it disappear. When he takes from it for another place, since this tevel is qualified to become profane for something similar, it cannot disappear. Rabbi Yossi said that means that if tevel was mixed with heave, since truma, in other words, since this tevel is qualified to become heave for something similar, it cannot disappear. But Rabbi Abun bar Chia is no answer to Reb Zera. As you take it, if the upper disappears, then the lower disappeared. If the lower did not disappear, neither did the upper, since it was already sanctified. It was stated, otherwise he brings 4 quarters and makes it bite. Rabbi Jonah in the name of Rabbi Zera. This means that 1 quarter of sourdough, which became tevel at its place, makes 4 other quarters tevel. This means that biting is biblical. Rabbi Imi said Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish differ. Rabbi Yochanan said biting is biblical. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said biting is not biblical. Rabbi Chia bar Abba switches the traditions. They asked before Rabbi Yossi, what did you hear about Rabbi Yochanan? He said, I did not hear anything, but let us explain the words of the rabbis from their own words. As we have stated there, if somebody collects loaves in order to separate Challah, and they bit, the house of Shammai say it is a connection for a Tuvul Yom, but the house of Hillel say it is not a connection. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, since we stated it in no connection, that means that nobody can become guilty under the heading impure person, impure eating pure food. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, that is different for Tuvul Yom, because for him it is written both pure and impure. Pure for profane food during daytime hours, and for heave for truma after dark. That identifies Rabbi Yochanan as the one who said that what is not a connection for the Tuvul Yom is biblical. Therefore, he says biting is biblical. And Shimon ben Lakish is he who says it is not biblical, since he says biting is not biblical. But did we not state otherwise he brings 4 quarters and makes it bite? Rabbi Yehoshua said, explain that it was part of the dough which was bitten. Rabbi Zera asked, do Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish differ if it bites by itself? But if he made it bite with his hand, everybody agrees that biting is biblical? Even if you say that disagreement arises, if he made it bite with his hand, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish sticks with his opinion, since Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said in the name of Chizkiah, tevel disappears in a plurality. Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Nehorai said tevel disappears in a plurality. Rabbi Yochanan said tevel does not appear in a plurality. Rabbi Abba bar Mamel and Rabbi Hila brought a case before Rabbi Asi. They wanted to say that 2 form a majority against 1. They had not heard that Rabbi Shimon said in the name of Rabbi Joshua ben Levi, Rabbi Simon said in the name of Rabbi Joshua ben Levi that tevel, since does not appear in a plurality, but did we not state otherwise he takes from 1 for all? Rabbi Yossi said everyone agrees that he separates. Where do they differ? To worry about a second taking. For him who says tevel disappears in a plurality, if one lifted it out but it fell into another place, he does not worry to take it out a second time. For him who says tevel does not disappear in a plurality, if one lifted it out but it fell into another place, he worries to take it out a second time. Rabbi Abba said Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish differ about tevel in biblical standards. By biblical standards, but for tevel, which is tevel only by rabbinic decree, everyone agrees that tevel disappears in a plurality. Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana objected before Rabbi Yossi, did we not state similarly if harvested olives are mixed with plucked olives, or if harvested grapes with gleanings? Is that not tevel only by rabbinic standards? Rabbi Mana said, I confirmed it. If oil from harvested olives was mixed with oil from plucked olives? Rabbi Yochanan objected to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. A person may take challah from a dough from which challah was not taken, to have it available in purity to separate from it. After most of it became challah, should not the remainder disappear in the plurality? He answered, when he notes it. You should know that this is so, since we have stated there, he who wants to separate truma and truma of the tithe together. Why does he have to define its place? Is it not that it should not disappear in a plurality? Batul Barov. Rabbi Isaac Bar Elazar said that he should not say the heave of this and the heap, and that heap should be in this one. Rabbi Isaac Bar Elazar changed his mind and said, I did not say anything. It is not Rabbi Yochanan who said, is it not Rabbi Yochanan who said, if somebody said the heave of this and the heap should be in this one, at the place where the heave of the first ended, there the second ends also. If somebody harvested a pumpkin to give now, and in the future, any time he harvests, he has to come up and note, up to here is heave, up to there is heave, the words of Rebbe. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says he harvests and computes as is usual for him. They wanted to say, for him who says up to here is heave, up to there is heave, tevel disappears in plurality, but for him who says he harvests and computes as is usual for him, tevel does not disappear in a plurality. Rabbi Abba said between them is the duty to immediately give it to the tribe. If he has to give heave for 4 or 5 amphoras in a cistern, he lifts the first one to the mouth of the cistern and says, this is heave. This is truma. The same for the second and third, the words of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbi says he lifts all of them to the mouth of the cistern, and says, this is heave. They wanted to say, for him who says he lifts the first one to the mouth of the cistern, tevel disappears in plurality, but for him who says he lifts all of them to the mouth of the cistern, tevel does not disappear in a plurality. Rabbi Abahu, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, they differ about earmarking. For him who says he lifts all of them to the mouth of the cistern, he has to give from what is earmarked. But for him who says he lifts the first one to the mouth of the cistern, he does not have to give from what is earmarked. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Abahu, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, switches. For him who says he lifts the first one to the mouth of the cistern, he has to give from what is earmarked. For him who says he lifts all of them to the mouth of the cistern, he does not have to give from what is earmarked. Rabbi Zera said to him, is it not united by sinews?